Hello everyone! Today I'll be talking about myself a lot and what I've done this year to improve as a creative and plans for the next year. So if that bothers you, please go watch literally anything else. 2025 really sucked. Every single day I had to wake up to some incomprehensibly horrible news at the local, national, or international level, usually at the national. Obviously everyone is dealing with this, so I try to do my best day to day, but unfortunately this year I experienced probably my first real crash as a creative. It's true what they say, if you don't take breaks, then they will be taken for you. The end of last year, I had spent more time on a project than I ever have to invent something that was truly new and novel, and while I know not to have expectations for YouTube, it still does suck to put in all that effort and have it do no better than anything else I do. It's a real bummer. This is the typical creative cycle. Put a lot of time into something, it doesn't meet expectations, get depressed for a few days, then start again. The solution to this is to take whatever joy you expect to feel from finishing and to instead give it to the process. I feel nothing when I finish my videos because the part I enjoyed was making them, and at this point I am numb to the feedback as a defense mechanism for years of constant, unfiltered hatred from strangers. But it's still hard not to feel let down with the bigger projects, or to feel that people didn't get it or whatever. Astute Acerola viewers would know that this event occurred before the 2024 shareholder meeting though, where I was very excited to announce my move to Godot and plans for tools development. So what happened to those plans? But before we continue, a word from this video's sponsor. This video has been sponsored by Brilliant. Brilliant is the best option for helping you excel in math, computer science, and many other topics with visual, interactive problems that are personalized to your learning level. On Brilliant, you'll realize that you were always a math person. Whether you want to revisit fundamentals or move on to something new, Brilliant helps you learn at your own pace, even on mobile. Brilliant has helped me revisit core concepts of math that I didn't fully absorb when I was in college, and with its massive catalog of math topics, there's always something new for me to learn and look into more deeply. Most importantly, Brilliant is committed to quality. Every course and problem is created by an expert, not a machine learning algorithm. To get started for free on Brilliant, be sure to go to brilliant.org/Acerola, scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the description, where you can also get 20% off an annual premium subscription for unlimited daily access to everything available on Brilliant. Thanks so much to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. No need to fear, dear Acerola viewer. Everything I said in last year's video is still planned and thought about every day. It just really boggles my mind that it's already been a year, because to me, it feels like a week since I made that video. I was really excited to get working on my universal post-processing tools, but unfortunately, due to some people in my life taking up lots of energy, I couldn't handle the balance, which is why there was no video for January, and the February video is probably one of my worst. Sometimes I am contractually obligated to release a video, and so you get Acerola slop like how game engines make shaders easy, where I desperately turn whatever I'm working on into a video. I'm going to talk about YouTube now, and how that affects the creative process. I'm sorry if this bothers you, or maybe it'll be some sage wisdom for the aspiring YouTuber. When it comes time to choose a project to work on, I also need to be able to make a video out of it, and the video also needs to get views so that I can eat food and pay rent and keep metrics that sponsors are willing to pay for. All things considered, I have it very easy when it comes to choosing video topics, because almost everything in computer graphics is a new and exciting thing the average person has never heard of or thought about before, and those things also result in pretty pictures to look at. Problems arise once we start going bigger scale with the projects though. Eventually the time it takes to implement the topic of a video is going to get longer and longer as the topics get more complex. The bigger the project, the harder it is to make the video on it as well, but it is what it is. There's a massive ocean of video ideas that are held behind this time gate, stuff like fluid simulations, cool terrain generation algorithms, and most AAA implementations of certain technology. Every now and then someone says I should make a video recreating nanite, and I don't even know how to start with explaining how much they're asking for there. Those guys also get paid a lot more than I do. The obvious solution from a YouTuber standpoint is to just not bother with implementing the topic myself and only presenting the paper. But like, don't get it twisted. I make YouTube videos so that I can do these projects. I don't do projects so that I can make YouTube videos. I want to play with my toys and get paid for it too. In the past on YouTube, topics that require a great deal of effort would be split up as a series of videos on said topic, but the space has evolved and episodic series are generally a thing of the past. People aren't that interested in clicking on something that says episode number 2 unless the topic of the series is so incredibly captivating that they feel compelled to watch the first episode. So each subsequent entry of a series results in massively diminishing returns, and why almost all devlog channels are fated to perish. These diminishing returns are the real nail in the coffin for my kind of videos, because the actually interesting stuff is going to be in those later episodes. Imagine if I had titled my video on simulating the ocean as water rendering episode number 2 or something. Would have gotten even less views than the simpler first video on water that is far less interesting. If episodes don't work, and actually spending the time to do these projects isn't worth it relative to much easier to produce videos, then we must create a secret third kind of video. There are two types of videos, growers and showers. A grower is a video that has pretty much no chance of virality, but will accrue views over a long period of time through search and occasional recommendation. Most educational content falls in this category because questions are often timeless, and people will continue to search for them. A shower is a video that people talk about, the entertaining videos, the videos that will get a lot of views very quickly and then burn out because they get recommended and not searched for. These aren't at odds with each other, since the best kind of video is both, something that is always interesting regardless of current trends and will continue to accrue views for as long as YouTube exists. I would say most edutainment is in this category. It's generally difficult and time-consuming to make these types of videos, which is why channels like Veritasium have entire teams dedicated to producing them. So when we solo creators aren't working on them, then we should aim to make the most out of our individual growers and showers. If done right, these two types of videos can have a symbiotic relationship. In fact, they already do without you doing anything at all. When a shower introduces someone to your channel, then that person will naturally also get recommended your growers. But we can do better. Since growers are generally educational, then we would like it if those videos provide foundational knowledge that would likely be shared across many showers. That way, when the idea comes up in those videos, I can provide a simpler explanation and refer people to the more in-depth video, instead of re-explaining the same thing in-depth over and over. This diagram illustrates the plan quite well. A viewer gets recommended an entertaining video, then gets referred to the video that further expands on a common idea. Surely if they watch enough of the entertaining videos that tell them about the underlying video, YouTube will do its job and recommend it, making it easier for them to make that decision to watch. In a sense, the videos on top service the videos on the bottom by funneling views to them when those videos otherwise wouldn't get views except through search. I put this plan into motion in March with my video on Perlin noise, a very common graphics algorithm that is well known enough to the point that people rarely actually explain what it is, and considering it's a 15-minute long video, you could think of this video's existence as saving me 15 minutes of explanation in any other more entertaining video. I chose Perlin noise because I planned on going pretty deep into terrain generation this year, and that usually makes heavy use of it. Instead, in April, my friend Phil was helping publish a game and wanted to sponsor a video, so I pivoted to making a little study of PS1 aesthetics, which I greatly enjoyed and had a lot of fun making. The disruptions didn't stop there, as I was contacted by Emmy of Godot Foundation fame, asking if I wanted to give a talk at GodotCon that was happening a couple weeks later, which I agreed to and began writing a presentation that you can watch over on the Godot YouTube channel. Just be warned, it's not exactly my usual vibe. Upon returning from my trip to Boston, I finally completely crashed and burned, and couldn't bring myself to do anything other than play video games for 18 hours straight and sleep. I did this for about 3 weeks straight until I finished the 100-line Last Defense Academy. Maybe if I focused on a shorter game, I would have recovered sooner. You see, the problem with unintentional breaks is that they do not feel like breaks, and so I realized that I need to chill out and start slowly escalating back up to my old output rather than trying to go back to 100 the moment I feel a little more motivated like I did in April. For the rest of May and all of June, I chilled out by implementing a basic GPU-driven terrain generator, except I realized while I was writing it just how great of a beginner project I think it is. So instead of chilling out, I put in a lot more effort to transform the project into a resource for people interested in graphics, alongside an itch event for people to join, with a landing page full of example extensions and ideas for people just starting out. I didn't have super high expectations because the appeal of something like this is very very small, but the Dirt Jam did get a whopping 65 submissions, which is 65 people who did something they otherwise wouldn't have. So that's cool. Thank you to all the Dirt Jammers. This event is eternally archived on itch, so it's always available to look at and reference if you are ever interested in trying out the Dirt method yourself. You can also view everyone's entries to reference their code if you want to. In July, it was finally time to actually slow down. Everyone was talking about the Stop Killing Games movement at the time because of Ross Scott's video, and I felt that there were a lot of opinions on the matter coming from many less than qualified people, so I decided I'd write a short little opinion piece on the matter to whoever it concerned. Ultimately, I just didn't feel like programming. My main objective was to demonstrate, without any of the usual culture war content creator stuff, how we got to the point where someone like Ross Scott needs to get into politics instead of do what he loves. I already vaguely knew how we got to this point on my personal account of being there while it happened, but the more I put my mental timeline of events together, the worse everything got, and the more I had to write just to explain how horrible everything is. So instead of relaxing, I wrote and edited a video twice the length of my longest, but it wasn't too hard thanks to motivation from some people I met at GodotCon. Finally, in August, it was time to take my break. Except if you watched that month's video, you would remember that VTuber DokiBird started her game jam right after my previous video had come out, and the theme inspired a project. So instead of relaxing, I spent all day every day the entire month developing a game and making the video on it. I made God Machine, a little game where you customize a 4-neighborhood, single-state cellular automaton to see what happens. The real purpose of this project was to gain experience making a full package game in Godot, more specifically with compositor effects to test the efficacy of my compute wrapper I wrote earlier in the year. The entire game is made of compositor effects, dispatching compute shaders written in Acerola compute that run the automaton simulation and draw it to the screen. So with that goal in mind, I think it was a great success. I even made a song for the first time. How exciting. After this, I think I do ultimately prefer Godot to Unity. Even if compositor effects are technically a lot more work, Godot is malleable enough that I'm able to do a lot of whatever I want instead of having to learn Unity's way of doing things when it comes to something like UI tools. Unfortunately, after another 31 days of constant work, I yet again crashed and burned. But there it was. Like an angel from heaven, the release of Hollow Knight Silksong. Hollow Knight released during my first term of computer science classes, so my skill set and the profound experience of playing the game are deeply intertwined in my neural pathways. I was obviously very happy the game had finally released. I purchased it as soon as the Steam servers enabled me to, and in the first 10 minutes of the game, everything I've learned these past 8 years betrays me due to an encounter with an incredibly powerful curse, color banding. It was at this moment I knew I would have to make a YouTube video about it, but I had an incredible time 100%ing the game. I think it is better than Hollow Knight in almost every single way. I started writing an overview of its rendering and how to solve color banding woes. I quickly realized I was essentially making 2 videos in one, so I decided to delay the video to give Team Cherry a video they deserved instead of a rushed, trend-chasing mess. Unfortunately, this was more than their fans deserved though, as upon video release, I got pretty relentlessly hated on for daring to criticize such a minor detail of the game. This was combined with harassment from another creator who won't be named and their fans over me merely mentioning the true fact that interleaved gradient noise is made for temporal anti-aliasing. It's pretty upsetting that all the work I put in was rewarded with the worst like to dislike ratio on any of my videos and a harassment campaign from someone who is essentially my coworker. I still get daily hate comments despite Team Cherry having released an update to fix the issue after seeing my video and even adding the effect to the Hollow Knight remaster. Because of this massive wave of negativity that relatively few people in history have had to personally endure, I decided I'm evil now, so I spent all of November writing about how horrible and stupid I think generative AI is so that I could have a different video with the worst like to dislike ratio and attract commenters who I wouldn't feel so guilty about bullying. I'm pretty happy with how this video turned out. It was a difficult task distilling my absolute pure hatred for something into a cohesive string of arguments. This brings us to December, and what I've been up to while writing this pointless autobiography. This month, I've been doing some much needed reorganizing and consolidation of ideas. For most of this year, I've been fantasizing about more physical activities, such as constructing a model for erosion in my garage and recording it for some nice reference footage, or just building a generalized photogrammetry studio for real-life references of whatever I'm trying to simulate. Sadly, these ideas cost money, which I don't have a lot of, but I did manage to save up enough this year to purchase a nice camera, which I'm very excited to start taking pictures with. Next, I just need several liters of this incredibly expensive black paint for a studio, and I'm all set. I'm also getting more interested in stuff like circuitry and actual hardware, which I never thought I would, but after learning how cheap sensors are, now all I can think about is what I could do with 100 Raspberry Pi thermometers aligned in a lattice grid around a heat lamp. All of these things are ultimately in service of furthering my graphics knowledge. There's lots of realistic phenomena that do not seem realistic, and without a physical model, it's hard to tell what's a bug in your lighting and what isn't. Just look at these weird ass shadows I saw on my walk today. I'd think this is a low quality shadow map if I saw it in a game. As the internet gets filled with more and more fake images, having the ability to produce my own references and measured data would be pretty nice. Aside from daydreaming about middle school level science fair experiments, I've been doing a lot of research and concepting for some game ideas I have. I know I've said in the past I wasn't very interested in making a game, but I guess that's changing too. No hints on these plans, of course, because that would spoil the fun, but there are concepts of a plan. Moving into the next year, I'll be taking a pretty big risk and no longer accepting strict sponsorship deadlines. Part of why all the issues in this video came about was because the easiest way to get sponsors is to get them ahead of time. Generally, I have one sponsor obligation a month, and if I didn't put a video out, it means I explicitly canceled with them, which doesn't feel very good to do. Instead, I'll be getting sponsors for videos after they're finished. That way, I can spend the time I need on them and hopefully make better videos that I can be proud of. I'm making this change now because I am quite serious about ramping up development of projects that have actual value, not just for entertainment, but for the development communities I consider myself a part of. GodotCon Boston will be happening around June next year, and I don't want to do some half-assed presentation this time that no one shows up for. I plan on bringing something actually worth talking about, so mark your calendars. Anyways, enough about boring Acerola activities. Let's talk about what really matters: video games. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Acerola Game Awards, where I talk about all the games I played this year and give them arbitrary ratings regardless of whether those games actually released in the year 2025. First, we have a lesser known game, Hollow Knight, which I replayed in anticipation of Silksong, one of the few things in life I would lobotomize myself for just to maybe get to experience it for the first time again. 10 out of 10. In February, I finally decided to play Darkest Dungeon 2, which I had put off because I heard less than stellar things. Unfortunately for me, those less than stellar things were true, as I don't really think Darkest Dungeon 2 is an improvement on its predecessor. I guess it's because I'm a boomer, but I have a great fondness for the short era of roster-based games like XCOM and Darkest Dungeon, where you grow an attachment to your team members due to the looming threat of permadeath. Sadly, Darkest Dungeon 2 did away with this mechanic in favor of run-of-the-mill roguelike mechanics, which is fine. I just don't like it as much because for me, the stakes that made the first game so great are no longer present. 3 out of 10. In March, we got Monster Hunter Wilds, the first Monster Hunter game I've played more than a couple hours of since World. Wilds is okay, I guess. One day they'll make a Monster Hunter game as good as 4U was, or at least add a new weapon. Wilds had a lot of neat new monsters, the final boss was really cool, and the music for it was even cooler. That's about all I can say about the game. Maybe I've played 1,000 hours too many of Monster Hunter games, but I'm not really sure what they could do with a new entry to really make me feel like the older games did. I really wish that the post-game gameplay loop of Wilds was the main gameplay loop, since I found it a lot more fun, but by that point, I was already kinda tired of it. In some ways, I feel like a majority of the appeal of Monster Hunter was its low graphical fidelity. The PS2 and subsequent mobile entries really solidified that aesthetic for my mental image of what Monster Hunter is, and now that it's objectively a very beautiful game, it kinda just feels like everything else. 5 out of 10. In April, I played Look Outside, an activity I'm not exactly fond of. Thankfully, you lose if you actually do that in the game. Look Outside is a really neat, old-school, turn-paced RPG Maker-style horror game with a lot of interesting characters and a number of different endings. In many ways, it reminds me of the manhwa Sweet Home, but with like an eldritch twist, I guess. This game seems to have a lot more to it than I got out of it, so maybe maybe a number of different endings is underselling since there's some Steam reviews with like over 100 hours. I should revisit the game probably. 8 out of 10. In May, I started the 100-line Last Defense Academy, a game unlike anything you have ever played. A game with a script long enough to print 60 paperback novels, the love child of the creators of Danganronpa and Zero Escape. The 100-line has you defending the Earth from alien invaders for 100 days until the war can be won. But obviously, not everything is as it seems. How mysterious. This game is over 200 hours long. Play it now, or die. Although I suggest playing Danganronpa and Zero Escape first. It's kind of like required reading. I absolve you of any shame you may feel for playing and liking Danganronpa. 10 out of 10. I played Peak, which everyone else also played. It's surprisingly fun. 7 out of 10. I also finally got to play Portal 2 co-op after 15 years, which was really fun. I feel like Portal is one of the only things that accurately captures the horror of scale and growth for the sake of growth. A facility larger than Manhattan sounds cool, but once you see it, not so much, especially when it's all for nothing. It's all empty, just a slight hum and stale air. 10 out of 10. I watched Northern Lion play The King is Watching, which I thought looked pretty cool, so I got it for myself, and yeah, it is pretty cool. The game has incredibly unique resource management, and the visuals are quite compelling. I am fond of the floating eye in the sky, and the King's Kubrick stare. 8 out of 10. Uma Musume Pretty Derby finally got its global release. I tried it out, and unfortunately, they got me. I love training the horse girls. Maybe a little too much. It's still mobile game gacha slop at the end of the day though. 1 out of 10. In August, I finally started reading Higurashi in preparation for the release of Silent Hill F later in the year. Obviously, I have known of Higurashi for many years, but I didn't read it when it was at peak popularity because I had been spoiled on a lot of the shocks. Also, I was like 12. Thankfully, I have since forgotten all the spoilers, so it was a good time to get started. After finishing Higurashi, it is quite difficult to put the experience into words. I'm not sure there's anything else you could read that really makes you know what it feels like to be mentally violated. Any attempts you make to solve the mysteries of each chapter as they're presented will be so far from the truth that it's humbling, like you were a fool for even trying. Ryukishi shows you what it might be like to play 8-dimensional chess. The story has little respect for what you've already learned. Red herrings and incorrect information that contradicts what you know to be true are constantly thrown at you even several chapters after you got real answers, which makes you constantly question your own memory, and it's usually over some random comment about like who someone got food with on a certain day or something. Ryukishi manages to hide the horror in otherwise harmless, unremarkable statements, sowing seeds of distrust by feeding you constant little white lies. As a complete package, Higurashi is incredible, and maybe even life-changing. A masterpiece of horror that only gets scarier the more you think about it. But just chapter 1 alone I think is a great work of art that everyone should read. It's free on Steam. After chapter 1, my favorites are 5 and 7. My favorite characters are Rika, Shion, Boishi, and Takano. If you're anything like Takano, please DM me. 10 out of 10. In September, I played Silksong. I think if you dislike the platforming in Silksong compared to Hollow Knight, you need to give it another 30 hours, and then you'll understand it's actually the best platforming in any 2D action game ever. 9.5 out of 10 until the DLC comes out with more difficult platforming sections. No, I'm Not a Human was an impulsive pickup and a bit of an unfortunate letdown. It's quite compelling at the start, and I did go through the effort of getting all the endings to juice it for all it's worth, but really the game feels like a prototype that doesn't really go anywhere. I did find one of the endings really cool, and I liked it very much, but otherwise, I think this game is better experienced through a Markiplier Let's Play. 4 out of 10. Town to City is a really beautiful voxel city builder that manages to be both relaxing and have actual meaningful progression from town to city. It's definitely not for the lower end machines, but if you've got a decent GPU and want something that can use it, then this is a great game for that. If you're interested in environment design, this is a great tool for that as well. The game helps demonstrate just how much of a difference trees and foliage make in creating visual density, and the high fidelity lighting makes for some pretty screenshots. I also just think it's a good city builder. 8 out of 10. Silent Hill F was surprisingly incredible. I already had high expectations, but Konami really blew it out of the park by actually giving creative freedom to a freak like Ryukishi. I'm glad I read Higurashi beforehand because in many ways, Silent Hill F is sort of like Higurashi at home. A lot of the themes are borrowed, recontextualized, and rediscussed in Silent Hill F. This isn't a bad thing, it's just cool to see the similar ideas. Silent Hill F is a deep-cutting commentary on how everyone suffers from the patriarchy, Mostly women though, and also the protagonist is a girl, so that's why they're calling it Silent Hill Feminist in the Steam discussion pages. 10 out of 10. Hades 2 was definitely a video game of all time. Supergiant Games is by far my favorite studio, as I am a mega super fan of Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre, and while I did enjoy Hades, I was less than enthused when Hades 2 was announced. I still gave it a shot though, and after finishing the main story, I'm really kind of just baffled that the story was written by the same people who wrote their other games. Perhaps the vibe they were going for just wasn't for me, but in terms of gameplay, it was a definite improvement on the first game, and I really enjoyed a lot of the weapons and builds. 1 out of 10. Crime Scene Cleaner. I don't really know. I got this impulsively, and I really enjoyed the first level, and I thought it was a very calming game that was also much more interesting than your usual cleaning games. I wish it was longer. 6 out of 10. Darkwood. I put this game off for a long time because I thought I wouldn't like it very much, and I was very wrong. This game is incredible, and I am very happy Darkwood 2 just got announced. Everyone should play Darkwood. 10 out of 10. Ball Pit. First we ball, then we pit. I really didn't think I'd like this game all that much, but after a couple overworld upgrades, the complexity really starts to show itself, and the combos are really pleasant. The music is also really good. It's pretty rare for me to listen to video game music outside of the game nowadays. My favorite fusion is Vampire Lord Maggots. 7 out of 10. Dispatch. I have what could be described as mixed feelings on this game. The target audience is clearly D&D players, like the slur kind, but once you look past the constant sex jokes and realize that this dialogue would be typical of a group of friends joking with each other while playing characters they wrote for a fictional world, I think Dispatch really brought me back to the glory days of Telltale at its peak, with The Walking Dead Seasons 1 and 2, and The Wolf Among Us. The world of Dispatch is very inspired, and feels like the flirting kind of superhero world, rather than the harassment kind. I really liked all of the characters and their designs. The game is also very beautiful. The entire game is actually pre-rendered artist-authored footage, so there are no quirky real-time graphics issues. Most importantly, Dispatch offers a very unique gameplay experience where you get to ask, wait, is that Aaron Paul? 7.5 out of 10. I hope it gets more. Persona 5 Royal. This game released after I got busy and couldn't commit 100 hours to something I'd already played, but I wish I played it sooner because it's actually upsetting how much better Royal is over base Persona 5. Like, base Persona 5 is hardly even a video game in comparison. Just total dog shit. This game also makes me mad because it shows me just how much better Persona 3 Reload could have been. Goro Akechi, 10 out of 10. Unbeatable. This game clearly has a lot of love put in, so it really pains me that I'm about to speak very poorly of it. Unbeatable is the latest in a long history of rhythm games that decided to put a story mode in, and I think out of all the bad story modes I've played, Unbeatable is by far the worst one I've ever experienced. It is so horribly clunky that I'm not sure if anyone actually played it just to verify if it worked well or not. The first hour is so incredibly boring that I have no intention of ever revisiting it. Thankfully, like all rhythm games with horrible story modes, the actual rhythm game part of the game is really good. The music is incredible, and there are a ton of songs available to play. I think you can unlock all of them through arcade mode, which is cool. My favorite is Bookend Song. Despite the 2-input system, it being based on up and down while the notes come in from left and right is extremely disorienting and almost made me quit playing. But after I remapped the controls to W and S for up and down instead of the default buttons being left and right of each other, I had a much better time. Ultimately, I think Unbeatable is one of those things that you know if it's to you or not based on one look. 5 out of 10. I have high hopes for this studio and their future releases. Alchemy Factory. What a beautiful end of the year find. I got this on a whim because I love automation games, and this one might be my favorite. While most popular automation games are survival automation, Alchemy Factory is more like Recettear and Moonlighter, where you sell goods in a shop. Aesthetically speaking, it really reminds me of my favorites of my childhood, like A Kingdom for Keflings, with its very soft shading that it unfortunately achieves through Unreal Engine 5 global illumination. If the developers ever see this, if you want this aesthetic without needing a 4090, consider the half-Lambert lighting model from Valve. It's one line of shader code. 8 out of 10 until it fully releases. Here's a tier list of all of these games I played for more than 30 minutes this year. Don't try cross-referencing the tiers with the out of 10 ratings I gave. I have to give the Game of the Year award to the 100-line Last Defense Academy, with Mahjong Soul at a close second. Congratulations to the 100-line Last Defense Academy for being the only game that no one will ever try to emulate because it is simply too long. Sorry, Silksong, better luck next year. So to answer the premise of this video, all I did was write the compute wrapper language, write the Perlin noise implementation, make that PS1 shader demo, write the terrain generator and host the Dirt Jam, make the Doki Jam game, and do a bunch of of color banding experiments, but trust in the process. Remember what Jing said, you must enjoy the side trips, even if the side trip is putting 250 hours into a visual novel. It also greatly upsets me that my most profitable video is about AI, so I'm fixing that by donating all of the ad revenue to the Godot Dev Fund, which you should support yourself if you are able. As for my other pursuits like piano, I'm still practicing of course. As always, thank you to all my current patrons. Without your support, I wouldn't be able to ponder the deep intricacies of Riichi Mahjong's game design. Anyways, I hope you have a happy new year, and I'll see you next time.